was called to be in the Provo MTC for 3 weeks, and then for the Guatemala MTC for 6 weeks. So I think they're doing that to help us transition from American culture to Latin culture, and also it really helps with the language to be surrounded by other people from Central America that speak Spanish. I saw a really big difference between those two MTCs, and I think it'd be really good to talk about, because I loved both of my experiences. But when I was in the Provo MTC, I absolutely loved it. I felt a lot of pressure on myself to learn a language, which I'm sure is normal for any missionary. You feel like you're drowning and that you're never going to learn that language, and it's really humbling, and I learned to just humble myself to the dust and pray for help. But I think I had a really great teacher who made us jump really quickly. He had us teaching really fast in our language when we really didn't have basic verb structure down, and so that was really hard for me, and sometimes I had my moments where I wanted to give up. But overall, it was a really heightened spiritual experience for me. I felt like spiritually I was so sharpened, and I loved that. And I loved my district. It's like this mini family, and that was the best for me, and I enjoyed it so much. When I went to Guatemala, it was a little bit different. You go from this really large MTC community that's really energetic, and to this really small, it felt like a nice Mormon hotel. It was nice, but it was really tiny and closed off with barbed wire. And, the culture shock is that there are men outside with guns guarding the gas station right in front of the temple. And it's just different. And the basketball court looks like a prison court because it has that barbed wire and prison feel. And so I did get a little stir crazy for the size, but, and it was different. Just, we had our Latin America or Latina companions. So I had the same companion from the Provo MTC, and we were in the same class together. But then at lunchtime or dinner or other activities, we switched to be with our Latina companions. So I had a companion from Nicaragua, and then later a companion from Honduras. And so that was really cool. We couldn't communicate very well at that point, but I love them because there's so much more ways of communicating besides verbally. That was good for me to hear the words that were actually said and not the book Spanish words that you're taught or the false Spanish that you're hearing in Provo. So it's really good. One of the learning curves I struggled with on my first transfer with the culture that I wasn't even aware of. I remember thinking, man, I'm struggling with the language. I don't connect with people very much because of that, but I hope I can just smile and people will know that I love them. That was kind of what I was hoping on. It was just if I can just send out the warm, fuzzy vibes, they'll get it. And maybe right now that's all I can give. Because I felt like I couldn't contribute very much teaching in Spanish and reaching out. But one really rough Sunday, I remember going to church and walking home with my companion. We were walking to a lunch appointment, and she just said, "Sister, why do you hate the mission? Or why do you hate the members? Everyone thinks you hate being a missionary and that you hate them." And I was so hurt. I was so shocked. And I thought, I don't know why they think that. Why do they think that? Tell me right now, why do they think that? And she said, you ignore people, you don't talk to everyone, and you're not reaching out to them, and they're getting the sense that you don't really want to be here. And it was kind of hard because maybe part of me didn't really want to be there, but I was just trying so hard to pretend I did. And, but I didn't hate those people at all. That is certainly not true, but I realized I was probably giving off vibes that were misinterpreted because of the culture. And that's something I would love to, whoever's going there, know this, especially, as a woman, as a missionary, when you get there, if you meet an older woman or any woman your age or younger, you hug them and you kiss them on the cheek. That's culturally what's accepted and it's what's anticipated. You hug that woman and you kiss her on the cheek. And so at first I remember being like, whoa, this is a little different. Not that I'm not I wasn't totally uncomfortable with it, but in the US, we have our bubbles and we respect everybody else's bubbles. And so I was okay with doing that, but I didn't realize when you walk into a room full of women, you go through and you acknowledge everyone's presence and you hug them and kiss them all. And what I realized I walked in, there were like 5 or 6 women clustered together, and I said, "Hola, ¿cómo están? Like, how are you guys?" I thought that was good, but no, and maybe I'd said hi to one specifically. I think there was another woman who was talking to another woman, so I thought, oh, she's busy talking, I'm not going to interrupt her. So I never said hi to her. I never got around to it because then we ended up moving on, and she thought I didn't like her because I did not greet her and I didn't say, "Hey, how are you?" And I felt so bad. But I realized that's something really important, that we're so used to ignoring people in this culture. You walk down the streets and you're not expected to say hi to them. But in Central America, and I really admire them for this, they are a warm, outgoing group of people that they greet everyone and they let you know, we acknowledge you, and that's your way of saying you care. And I also remember wondering, oh, maybe it was just that companion that was telling me that. And I remember being transferred to my next area, and we were walking down the roads, and she would say, "Hola, hola," to all the random strangers passing by. And I thought, oh, she's being a missionary. And she, I'm like, I'm not the loud type. I don't really like saying hi to everyone. That's kind of exhausting. And she called me out on it. She's like, "Sister, we're missionaries. We need to say hi to everyone, but not just because we're missionaries, but because it's a polite thing to do." And the thing I noticed was when she was saying hi to those people, all of them said hi back like it was no big deal. And that's the thing. There, you acknowledge everyone. Everyone you pass by, you say hi and you talk to them. And so that's a really helpful thing to learn starting out, especially if you can't speak the language, because that's your way of showing people that you care. So the typical Honduran plate that they give you, there are tortillas, corn tortillas. They're really thin, and I like them. They don't have a ton of flavor, but I don't think a picky eater could complain about that. You usually get served beans and rice, but I didn't eat as much rice as I did like beans and tortillas and cheese. So typical cheese there is really different. And this, I think maybe for somebody coming, not used to it, would be a little bit like shocked. But the cheese there is like, they give you these little small rectangles of hard white cheese, and it's really salty, really, really salty cheese. And so a lot of people hated that. A lot of American elders that I talked to, they're like, "I hate that salty cheese. It's so salty." I learned to really love it because the tortillas were so bland, not bland, but they were kind of plain. So if you just crumbled up that cheese on top of your beans, they also serve eggs and sausage. So you usually get like scrambled eggs, maybe sometimes some sausage, beans, that little cheese, and fried plantains, which I love so much, which I didn't like because I went to an El Salvador restaurant that fried like the big ones, and I don't really like them when they're like really like big because they're so sweet, and that was like, "Ugh, this is sweet, I'm not used to that." But there they slice them up thinly and they fry them, and so they start to caramelize, and they pour cream on it, and then sometimes I'll sprinkle that salty cheese on that. It's really good. I loved the food, and that's usually what I had. Or they'd give you sopa, soup. They serve lots of soups there, usually with like vegetables, with different types of bananas. They have tons of different bananas there. They'll slice them up and cook that, and different vegetables that you've never seen in your life. You'll see fruits that you're like, "What is that? Like, am I in this exotic random dimension?" But it's really cool. There are a lot of different fruits and vegetables that I'd never eaten that I loved, and I didn't eat anything that nasty. If anything, just like some weird food combos that I had never thought of. I'm not a big fan of sweet drinks, but they have a few different like rose petal drinks and different drinks that I wasn't fond of, but I didn't hate them. Maybe the most shocking or gross food that would be weird for a missionary is sopa de mondongo, which is like a soup that has like some part of a cow intestine. Like I think it's the upper part of the stomach or the cow intestine, something like that. But it's like a famous typical dish, a Honduran dish. It's, everyone talks about. But luckily I dodged that one because I think just me being a white sister, they thought, oh, she won't like that. So they never served it to me, just assuming that I wouldn't want it. But most people will eat that. So other foods I can't think of, but I really like the food. It's simple, really simple, but it was good. Oh, actually, one more thing. Something weird that they would do is they love eating spaghetti, but the way they make spaghetti is not typical. They'll like put mayonnaise and ketchup and maybe some butter and onion to like, that's their sauce that they put in their spaghetti, and they'll eat that with a tortilla. So, I mean, the ingredients I'm totally fine with, so I was okay with it, but it's definitely something I would not eat on my own. And then another funny thing is you'll see Chinese restaurants in Honduras all over the place. And they just love Chinese food, but it's really different. You know how in the US, we have Americanized Chinese food, like Panda Express is not probably the real Chinese food. They kind of do that with Chinese food there. They have their Honduran version of it. And just a funny random thing, I don't know why they do it, but they always serve white bread, slices of white bread with Chinese food. It's like what you have to eat when you are eating. Like, yeah, like they'll have their chow mein and all their other stuff and then complimentary white slices of bread. So I thought that was funny. When a family member passes away, they put a black bow, like a draped bow above the door. And I had always seen those, and I thought maybe it's like a Catholic thing. I don't know what that is. I remember asking them, and they said, yeah, like so-and-so passed away, you know. Sometimes they'll leave it up for like a year. You never know. But I thought, yeah, that's actually kind of useful if you're tracting or, you know, knowing, you know, somebody's lost a family member. Another thing that I was shocked with Central American culture is that, like funerals, I didn't realize that if somebody passes away, naturally, they keep that body in the home that night, and the family members have to be with the body all night long. They have to take turns staying up with their loved one, watching the body. And I was totally freaked out by that. And I was like, weird. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I wouldn't do that for my family. I'd go to bed. And I said that, and my companion was like, sister, like, that's really disrespectful. And I was like, why? Why would you want to stay up watching a dead body? Like, go to bed. And they're like, no, like, you got to be respectful. Like, and so for them, that's just, maybe it started out with superstition, then turned into a tradition of respect. But yeah, the body will stay in the home, and they take turns going to bed, and somebody stays with the body. And that's only for the first night, and then they take the body away. When you're in the MTC, you feel on top of the world. Your teachers make you feel like you're going to be such a great missionary. You feel a spirit so strongly, and you feel so excited. And then you get to the mission field as this new missionary being trained, and your daily experiences are drastically different. And I was hoping, you know, to feel that, wow, like I'm changing people's lives every day feeling, and I wasn't feeling the spirit the same way. And it kind of shook me up a little bit. I thought, what's wrong, and why am I not feeling the same? I mean, I'm like, am I feeling the spirit, or am I just so overwhelmed with culture shock and trying to understand people that can't really focus on feeling the spirit? And maybe it's there, but I'm just, my fear and my stress and anxiety is smothering that. And so, and looking back, I think I was doing my best, and I don't think the spirit was gone, but I do think it's something I've talked with other people about, and I've noticed a trend that a lot of sisters kind of, or maybe it's elders too, kind of feel that big difference. Like, it's like jumping off a cliff and into the water, and it's this completely different feeling. And I guess my word of advice would be to anyone who gets from the MTC to the mission field for the first even couple months, if you feel like you're kind of a failure, don't worry about it, because it's kind of normal to feel that way and to kind of get in the groove. And if you have a really spiritual experience once every 2 weeks, that's okay to feel that way. And because they're precious little gems that you find, and they're not pouring from the skies, and they take a lot of work before you get there. I did have a friend who served in Paraguay, and she had kind of not warned me, but explained, you know, the experience she had, and and how she said, when you ever have a hard time, just write me and I'll, encourage you and reassure you that you're not the only one who's been through those things. And I think I kind of forgot about that. My first transfer, I had kind of a rocky, it was kind of like a thrown into the refiner's fire experience, which is really good, and I really needed that looking back. But I had a trainer who, we have a different personality, and she's more of a rough around the edges. She told me, I think it was one day when I was crying because I felt like I couldn't communicate well with people and I couldn't understand them, and I felt so isolated from the world. And I felt emotionally like I want to talk to someone in English and I want to just connect with someone. And I felt like I couldn't with the people I was teaching because of that language barrier. And with my companion, I understood her pretty well, but she wasn't the warm, fuzzy type. And I'm not saying that she's a bad person. We're just so different that way. And I remember her even saying one day, like, I'm not sweet, and if you need comfort, I'm probably not the person to come to for that. She said, you can cry if you want, and that's fine, but I'm not a sweet one, and I can't help you with that. And it was just so hard, and she was good for me. She taught me obedience. She was really, really strict, but I just wasn't, the time structure was so different. It was, be up, it's like military, and it was, obedience is so important, and I can testify of that, but it is something I wish I'd prepared for more before, was getting used to a schedule and sticking to it, and being used to like being on time and being right on time. And I guess the most important thing I would want to tell somebody is, if you feel like you're not enjoying the mission at the beginning, don't feel like you're alone. Don't feel like you're the only person that's felt that and that something's wrong with you. Because I felt that way. I thought, I'm not really enjoying this. I'm tired and I'm not enjoying this process, and I thought I would. And everybody you hear talk about in their talks, they're like, I love my mission so much, I want to go back. And I was thinking these first few months, this isn't really fun and I'm not really enjoying it. And I thought, what is wrong with me? I am a bad missionary. I thought I was really bad. And I didn't go home. That thought never crossed my mind, but I kind of wanted to at a certain point. And the circumstances were difficult at the beginning. I think Heavenly Father did that because He humbled me and He really strengthened me by having, certain companionships, certain experiences. After 6 months in the field, things started to change, and I started loving the mission. Didn't mean it wasn't stressful. I still felt really stressed. I felt a lot of pressure to be perfect. But I loved my companions. I loved the people. I enjoyed it, and I felt close to the Lord. And the Spirit, I think when I stopped worrying about how good I was as a missionary and if I was doing everything right, when you stop worrying about that and just let yourself feel love and let the Spirit flow through you, it is more enjoyable, and you do feel more fulfilled. And so that's something I wish I had known, is that, and just talking to people now, I didn't realize most of my friends were feeling the exact same thing at the beginning of their missions. They were feeling like there was something wrong with them because they weren't enjoying it. And so sometimes you just have to push through those moments to find the sunshine. Sometimes you'll be in a rain cloud for months till the sunbeams start bursting through, And so I think that's the most important preparation I think you can have, is to anticipate that and endure and push through, because it's worth it. On my mission, there were lots of hard days, For me, the rain was the worst. I hated walking in the rain. I felt like I knew it was a bad day if it was like 7 o'clock and all the appointments fell through and I was walking in the rain. And there the streets flood a lot because they don't have a lot of good sewage systems. So if it's raining, the puddles just, pile up high, and then next thing you know, you're walking knees up to your knees in water, and you don't know what's in that water. Anyways, I just hated the rain, and I hated surfing as a missionary in the rain. Just those days were the worst. But and it's hard when appointments fall through and people lie to you and tell you they're not home, and a lot of that happens, by the way. You got to be prepared and not be hurt when people reject you. You can't take that personally. You just have to remember they're not ready for this, and it's not me. And even if they yell at you, it's probably not that they hate you, it's they hate some experience they had associated with the church, or they're bitter about something in their life. Anyways, so hard days, just trying so hard to do your best and thinking, if I'm obedient, if I'm doing everything I can, I should have success. And when nobody gets baptized, it's really hard. And I just had to realize that I couldn't blame myself for the success that wasn't happening. But a really beautiful thing I learned on my mission was that when I was having those hard days and everything seemed to go wrong and I was exhausted and my bones were aching walking through that wet rain and not being able to get into a house, or having all the appointments fall through, I had to remind myself, something good is coming, this is worth it. Because I feel like, we learn through the scriptures, there's always this opposition before something good happens. Joseph Smith felt like he was in the depths of darkness before he saw the light of Christ and the Father. He felt like he was on the verge of dying and being consumed by darkness. And I believe it was Moses as well who felt like he was just going to collapse in this opposition of Satan, before he was able to see so many marvelous things and have that amazing spiritual experience. And I think that's a pattern for our lives. I remember before my mission preparing, there was so much opposition, so many random things happening that made me feel like the winds of hell were whirling around me, keeping me from going on a mission. And just on my mission, I felt like there were those hard days, but I learned this pattern. And it's good to be aware of the pattern because it's always going to happen. You're going to have rough days before something really awesome is going to happen. And it's usually, you're not going to get that little gem without fighting for it. And so I remember being in a certain area and that was the hardest. It was just dark. It was just a lot of rainy days, and it was just one transfer. It was a beautiful area, but so many things just weren't working. It was this really small branch. So we were just the missionaries were the ones holding that branch together. We were doing the callings because there were not enough faithful members to keep it running. So I was like young women's president, sometimes teaching primary, and branch president was just learning things. So I remember being discouraged and finally getting a few investigators that I thought, wow, something can really happen. Like they're progressing, and being encouraged and thinking, wow, they're going to get baptized. And then next thing I know, we get a phone call that we're going to be transferred, my companion and I, and that they're actually closing down that area for the sisters. And it just broke my heart. I thought, I've been working so hard and all of this for nothing. Like, I thought, what was the point of my serving in that area? Just the dark puddle rainy days. Like, I just didn't get it. I was so confused. And I thought, these investigators, what's going to happen to them? And I guess they didn't necessarily close our areas, but they did for the sisters. They had us take our investigators and hand them over to the other elders that were in that area. So we gave them all of our teaching records and we said, okay, take good care of these investigators. And we even walked them around to show them where they lived because, addresses don't really work there. And I just moved on to my next area, even though I didn't really want to be there. I thought, okay, whatever. Hopefully that wasn't all in vain, because I felt like it was all in vain. And then the last day of my mission, a random elder I didn't know came up to me. And he said, sister, do you remember Juana? And do you remember this family? And do you remember this individual, Carla? All of these random different people I was teaching at that time, all of them had gotten baptized. And I was so happy. The joy just burst out of my heart. And I thought it wasn't all in vain. And I remember going through my journals and reading about the days that when I first taught Carla and when she said she knew the Book of Mormon was true and that she wanted to join the church. Reading the journal entry the night before was that really rainy day that was really miserable and dismal. And then, reading about this woman, Juana, that I'd met, who, being really discouraged the day before, reading that journal entry, and it was one of the hardest days. And then the next day, I remember thinking, we got to find new people. Let's walk down this way. And we just randomly started walking in a different neighborhood, and I thought, let's go knock on this door. And there's this woman, Juana. Actually, her daughter had opened the door, and so we started teaching her, and we started teaching her something randomly about forgiveness. I think she was hurt by someone in her life, and we kind of sensed that by asking questions. And so we just gave a really simple 10 to 15 minute lesson. I think we had read a few scriptures about forgiveness and, letting go of bitterness. And she let us keep coming back. And we had a really hard time getting through, the restoration lesson and the typical lessons, because we just kept coming back and teaching little things that we felt like applied to what she was going through. And at first we were just teaching her and her daughter, but we knew she was affiliated with another religious group, and we knew she was really faithful, but we were like, wow, she's listening to us. But we couldn't get her to come to church because she was still very faithful in her other church. And by the time, I think we had asked her if she had gotten an answer from praying about the Book of Mormon, and the last time I had heard from her, she said she felt like she had read some scripture in the Bible that led her to believe that the Book of Mormon wasn't right. After she had prayed. And I can't remember which scripture it was, but when I read it, my interpretation was that the Book of Mormon was true. But I think she was so scared that she flipped the interpretation. Anyways, so that was my last impression of Juana, but I still loved her so much that we had the elders meet her. And my last day of my mission, this elder told me about Juana and how she had joined the church and how her daughter had joined the church, had gotten baptized, and was up there on Sunday bearing her testimony about the beautiful sisters that showed up at her door. And I really didn't have faith that Juana would get baptized. I really didn't think so. I was just teaching her because I thought, she's somebody that we have. And you just really don't know. You can't decide for people what's going to happen. You can't give up on that persistence. And I haven't been in touch with her. I need to find her information, but that was just filled my heart with joy. And then another thing I have to share about that area is there was a couple we were teaching, and they were going to church, and we thought, this is going great. They had accepted a baptismal date, and then we had showed up one day, and the wife had just turned us away. She was so angry because her brother had died, and she was angry at God, and she was angry at us, and she didn't want anything to do with God because she was so hurt. And that was the last I'd ever seen of her. And so that was another reason I was discouraged. So we never got to teach her again. But then when I had talked to that elder my last day of my mission, she said, that family got baptized. The whole entire family is baptized now. I'm so happy to hear that. And then another woman who had also, so we were teaching her, she accepted to be baptized. And then we said, will you come to church this Sunday? And she said, oh, you know what? I just got a new job and I only work on Sundays. And I just thought, this is so frustrating. Whatever. And then I got transferred, and that's all I heard from that. I just thought, she's never going to get baptized because she's only going to work on Sundays. That last day of my mission, that same elder said, Carla got baptized. And I don't know how they pulled it off, but God can work miracles. So, there are so many things that you don't know the influence you have. And you can't wait for little rewards. You can't wait to see the success, because that's not what serving is about. It's not about, I gained all these prizes. I have all these names, all of these baptisms to my name. It's not about that. And I'm really grateful that I was able to see, it wasn't necessarily, I think the Lord showed me at the end of my mission just to teach me, yes, I accept the service that you've done, and you have made a difference. And I was just happy that all those dark days paid off, and that even if they didn't pay off in the way that I wanted to, it's important to remember that God still, He accepts your service, and that even if you don't feel like you were a very valuable missionary, in some strange way that you have no idea, you really were, and maybe you won't ever know for your whole life. Something I also realized is that after being in a different country and speaking a different language for a year, you start to forget pieces of you and pieces of your personality, your identity, that you start to just leave behind, which is good, because as a missionary, you really do want to take Christ's name on you and just really forget yourself and get to work, as we always repeat. But something I learned that was so helpful was keeping a sense of humor. And certain people that you're with will pull that out of you. I remember the girl I trained, she was just this ball of sunshine, and I could just laugh with her all the time. And I realized, oh my goodness, the first 6 months of my mission, I wasn't laughing very much. And I made myself miserable because I was so stressed. And because I was so stressed about learning a language, I didn't even try to crack jokes in Spanish. But I had so much fun with her, and just her light personality really helped me. That's just a great tool to like manage stress and keep yourself happy and keep yourself going. Just because you're a missionary and you're spiritual doesn't mean you can't laugh. And I forgot that way too much. And it is hard to be able to express yourself that way in a different language. I remember I had all native companions, or like Latina companions, up until, I don't know, like after like a year and 3 months or whatever in my mission. And I was put with this other American sister. And I was really excited. We were jabbering in English even though we weren't really supposed to. And I remember we were just laying in bed trying to sleep. We were supposed to be asleep after 10:30, but we were just kind of chatting, and because we couldn't fall asleep. And I think, I can't remember if it was her or if it was me, but I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, sister, I'm back. Like, my personality is back. I forgot about her. Like, my sense of humor, like Rachel is back. And I remember what it feels like to be me. And part of that is just the language, is you just forget about certain aspects of you. And sometimes it's good to not go too far in the way that you want to go home and you just give up on the mission. But I think you can be true to yourself and enjoy it. And just, I don't know, I just thought it was interesting how she felt the exact same ways, that we kind of had lost our identities and rediscovered them. So I think that was really good advice, is just to be cheerful and find things to laugh at. Even if it's stuff from culture here in the US, if you can just make connections to like make yourself chuckle along the way, I think that's great. So, yeah, that's one thing. Another thing, I did have a companion who, her and I were really different. But she was my second American companion, and our differences sometimes clashed, and we had a hard time getting along for a while. And sometimes, she would just offend me or I would offend her, and it was just kind of, we both acknowledged that it was really hard. But something I admire so much about her is she started doing this little tradition of, she called it T-block, or T-block, yeah. So, where's my journal? I have this journal that is full of notes. I hope I'm not embarrassing her by this, but you can just see all of these little red notes here all throughout my journal. Every single day in that companionship, she would write me a note, and she'd sign it at the bottom, TPLOC. I never knew what it meant. It was that little mystery. And at first, even if we had a day we fought, and the note would still come every night or every morning. I never knew when it was going to come, but always, showed up on my pillow, showed up in my scriptures. And I thought it was such a beautiful expression of love. And what a great way, even if you're having a hard time finding something good in that person, she would compliment me. And they were just full of compliments. Like, one would say, some of them are in Spanish. Let's find an English one. Well, I think all of them are Spanish. She'd say, thank you for sharing what you're learning with me. Your testimony, your faith strengthened my faith. Or, I like how you express gratitude and thanks. And it's something that's really pretty about, or like really great about you. So she'd just find good things about me. And I thought, I really need to do this for her. Like, that was such a great way. If you're struggling in a companionship and you're just not, it's like the type of person you don't think you would ever be friends with, maybe initially, there's a way to develop charity and look for those positive things rather than, if you're looking for negative stuff, you're always going to find it. And at the very last day of my mission, I don't even know if I have it in here, she gave me this big note that explained what T-block is, and it represents the pure love of Christ. And that was something that she was really striving for in her mission, and that she had really developed with me. It must have been that difficult. But I just thought it was a beautiful lesson, and really spiritually, it's been a theme that I've taken home with me for my mission. I just really want to have charity, and I'm still so far away from it. But I think serving my mission really taught me that, and this is something I wish I had learned earlier, is that we get so caught up in obedience and doing things right and being perfect. And I think we forget that being perfect doesn't mean checking off everything on the list. It means having a pure heart and loving people. And just studying the scriptures, I realized that's all that really matters, is God just wants us to love and have charity. And we're not getting into the celestial kingdom if we don't love others. And I learned that on my mission. I wish I had forgotten, not forgotten, but stopped worrying so much about the little things, and having charity be the main focus. And all of the mission rules would be attached to that charity or revolve around it, but not let the structure of the rules determine my mission and charity be something I was just trying to fit in around it. I really think that our God loves us, and that missionary service is about charity. And it's been a theme for my life that I've been striving for since, is to really try to embed that in my life, even though I still struggle so much. But something that I really learned from that companionship, that even though it was really hard at the time, I look back and I'm so grateful for her and for her friendship now. So that last companion I had, where she wrote me those beautiful notes in the journal that I had put in my journal. So we were teaching this beautiful family, and I remember one day, it was after a P day, and we had gotten this argument, and we were just so annoyed with each other, and we were walking to our lesson, our first lesson of the night, and we were just in this irritable, bickery mood to each other, and we walked up to the doorstep, and we were just resolving. I think right when we were walking up to that house, we thought, we don't, in my mind I was thinking, I don't want to teach this way. I don't want to feel this way when I'm going to teach this family that I love. So we had, and just from one side of the corner to the next house, we had resolved our problems. We tried to wrap it up on a positive note, and we had kind of like forgiven each other and kind of told each other we still cared about each other, and like we had resolved it very quickly and with love, which is a nice theme in that companionship. We went from really irritable, like not getting along, to, what, I still really love you, which was a really good thing to learn, that you can be angry and make mistakes and forgive and still love. So it showed up at the doorstep, and then we resolved it real quick, knocked on the door, that family let us in, and we started teaching, I think it was the plan of salvation. And it's funny because so we were teaching, and when we asked at the end of the lesson, what the father had thought about what we had taught, he said, what I notice is that when you teach, your companion looks at you, and she's interested in everything you say, and she's listening to you and watching you as if she's hearing this for the first time. And then when you teach, you watch your companion and you support her so much in everything she says, and there's just this unity between you. And because of that unity, I can tell that your message is true. And I feel like you are angels preaching the truth because of the spirit I feel that's between you. And wow, what does that say about companionships, right? That it's so important to love your companion and the people you're with, because the spirit is with you when you do that. And you can't have the spirit when you have hate or bitterness in your heart. And whether you know it or not, it doesn't matter how eloquent you try to teach, things are flowing out of you that you're not aware of. And that man recognized it. And I can't remember if it was the same lesson or a different day. Moments before we showed up to teach, that couple was actually fighting. And she was really hurt. I think the wife was really hurt, and I think he wasn't even in the lesson, but the little boy had said, Mommy's mad at Dad, and it was kind of embarrassing for them. And finally, I think the father had come out, and both of them told us, yeah, we got in this argument, we're not perfect. I think we were talking about, how families can be together forever, and that the gospel strengthens families, and they were having doubts, and And we just reassured them that the gospel could strengthen their marriage and that it could strengthen their family. And we said, you know what? We're not married, but we are a companionship, and we are not perfect, and we get in arguments, but the gospel of Jesus Christ helps us to love each other, and it brings miracles and brings peace that can't come otherwise. And I feel like that companionship was very specifically inspired to teach this couple that was going through these rocky times. And that family is now baptized and preparing to be sealed into the temple to be an eternal family. So it was just a beautiful experience. I'm really grateful, even though it was so hard at times. I think Heavenly Father knew exactly what He was doing. Christmas is a big deal for them, but it's not as a big of a deal as we make it commercially, with Christmas lights and decorations and music. There, they still celebrate. Their big Christmas meal is tamales. That's what they serve a lot, and firecrackers is what they love to do on New Year's and Christmas. It's just firecrackers going off everywhere all night long. And in the morning, the streets are just covered with like shredded newspaper and little burnt spots. So it's just a different way of celebrating. Congratulations for being called to serve in the mission Honduras Comayaguela. It is a wonderful mission. It will be a wild ride, let me tell you that. You will see things that you've never seen before, but you'll meet wonderful people. And those experiences, no matter how difficult or how beautiful, they're going to really build up your character, and they're going to bring you to Christ and change your perspective on the gospel and change you. My mission has changed my life, and it's really embedded into my heart and who I am, and I'm so grateful that I served there, and just press forward no matter what and enjoy it and appreciate it. And I congratulate you. It's going to be great. So it's just something, if you're a sister going to Honduras, you've got to know that men are extremely forward, and you have got to be careful and be on your guard. And so, I mean, it's totally flattering. I think, you know, if you have lighter skin color and blue eyes and lighter hair, man, you're just going to get catcalls all day long. So, but they're just a lot more forward about their feelings and what they think. And so, you definitely have to not encourage men, and to just be really, find that balance between being friendly and representing the church in a friendly way, but definitely letting people know that you are not about that. You're not going to entertain the thought of, I don't know, just, yeah, men are just really forward, and sometimes it's really uncomfortable. What else was I going to say about that? Oh, kind of also about the forwardness, about the culture, is that people can be really blunt sometimes, and they'll say what they think, and you just can't be offended, you know? If they tell you you're chubby, then it's just because they think that you're not skinny, and they find it endearing, and, you know, and sometimes they'll just say it how it is. And really, I actually admire that, because I think sometimes we sugarcoat things, or we suppress a lot of our thoughts, and I think it's so nice to be able to communicate clearly and openly, and sometimes it's hurtful, and it's like, yeah, you could have done without that comment, thanks a lot, but but it's just good to know that that's part of the culture, and you just embrace it. And, you know, I'm not a skinny girl, but I think I knew that before. Like, I knew that the culture is really blunt, and so it never really bothered me at all, because I just thought, oh, they're just saying, you know, how things are, and that was cool. So, but, you know, if you're sensitive about things, then it's something to be aware of, to not be offended. Okay, so some things, luckily I had talked to a sister who had already served in Honduras, and one of the most important things she told me is that it's going to be hard to find tampons there. So that's good to know for sisters, that they'll need to buy that, and I, you know, just pack a 1.5-year supply. Also, your favorite makeup products or facial products, like, it's a luxury there to have American products, and so they're going to jack up the prices really high, and odds are you'll just get a random grab bag of things that they have on sale, though. So if you have a favorite moisturizer, a favorite face wash, favorite shampoo, you'll usually have to have your family send that. So I had packed all of that, and my sister had this little system down. She said she had always sent 2 bottles, or maybe just 1 bottle, and so I'd have 2 at the same time, and once a bottle ran out, I'd email her or mail her a letter and say, send me another one. So by the time I'd finish that bottle, the next one would come. So stuff like that. I mean, you can get soap and shampoo there, but if you're picky about what you like to use, it's good to have that on hand. Things that they don't have for food, if there's like, you know, if there are parents wanting to put together packages, beef jerky is one of those things. Marshmallows, you're not going to see there. I'm trying to remember. Peanut butter they do have, but it's a little more expensive. But I remember wanting to eat peanut butter, but like it was kind of those luxury things I'd have to save up for. But they usually have almost anything else. I think something good to know though is that the stores there, at least where I was, and most places in Honduras, there's not going to be a place like Walmart or a store that has like a certain set of merchandise that's always guaranteed. Like it's more like a thrift store, but so when you go in there, it's like we have what we have, and it's not organized like, oh yeah, you know, blue shirts are over there, and you'll see like 5 of the same blue shirts. It's like, oh yeah, we happen to have a blue shirt here, you know? So it's just like this random, it's hard to shop there because it's not organized and stocked up the way we have things here. And so clothing shopping is hard. Anything you're looking for specifically is just a little more difficult. You'll just have to like peek through different shops. I remember, something I wish I had bought are flashlights, a rechargeable flashlight. That's something I had to buy while I was there because the lights will go out a lot. It's just, I don't know if it's the electrical system, but a lot of the times randomly the power would go out. And so it was really nice to have a flashlight on hand because it's scary walking home in the dark. And so especially a rechargeable flashlight because it's less expensive. Buying batteries is expensive. So I remember having to like on a P-Day hunt through different stores. Do you have rechargeable flashlights? Do you have rechargeable flashlights? You know, so that's a good thing to have. An umbrella, a really good strong umbrella is good to have. I wore a lot of sunscreen on my missions. You're out walking all day, and I got sunspots by the time I got back, and I wish I had worn more sunscreen on my arms. And something culturally that's totally normal there that you might feel stupid doing, but wearing an umbrella just in the sun all day long, wherever you walk somewhere, just have an umbrella out to protect your skin. I remember feeling like Mary Poppins because I was dressed like a sister missionary with an umbrella, but I was so sunburned my first month that my mission president said, like, Sister Jackson, like, you have got to use your umbrella. Like, because culturally it's just normal. So embrace the umbrella and use it for your own health and for the rain. But I went through so many umbrellas because I kept buying those cheap little compact ones and the wind would just tear it apart. And so just buy a really, really strong, good quality umbrella, even if it's that dorky, like cane umbrella, which I ended up using eventually because that's the kind that lasts. So that was something I wish I had gotten. Okay. Another thing that I wish I had bought were those microfiber towels. They're really thin and they pack up really compactly because when you hand wash your towels, it takes first of all, it hurts your hands and it's really hard to do. And then when they dry, it's just hard to like hang dry a towel and without it getting mildewy and in a humid place. It doesn't dry very well and they're prickly. But microfiber towels, they absorb really well and they're really thin and so they dry really quickly and you just don't use up as much room in your suitcase. So I would have wished I had one of those. So